When my daughter-in-law handed me a cardboard box and told me to take my things, I thought I had nothing left. But when I opened that box in the parking lot of a gas station, alone, at 67 years old, I found a savings account booklet showing $480,000 and a folded note in my son's handwriting that changed everything I thought I knew. Let me take you back to where this night really started. My name is Leonard. I spent 31 years working as a maintenance supervisor for the county school district in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was not a rich man. I was not a flashy man. I drove a 2009 Ford F-15. Oh, that I kept running myself, wore the same 3 pairs of work boots on rotation, and paid off my house on Greystone Avenue in 2019, the same house my late wife Patricia and I bought together in 1991. That house meant everything to me. Every wall in it had a memory. Patricia's garden was still growing in the backyard even after she passed from ovarian cancer 3 years ago. I kept watering it because I could not bring myself to let it die. After Patricia died, I was lonely in a way I had never been before. 51 years of a marriage and then nothing. The silence in that house was the loudest thing I had ever heard. So when my son Marcus called me that October and said he and his wife Diane needed a place to stay while their apartment lease ran out. Just 3 months, Dad, just until we get settled. I said yes without thinking twice. Marcus was my only child. Of course I said yes. I want to be honest with you. I liked Diane when Marcus first brought her home 6 years ago. She was sharp, put together, always had something smart to say. I thought she was good for him. What I did not see then, what I was too trusting to see common, was how she looked at things, how she looked at my house. Not like a home, like a number. They moved in on a Saturday with a moving truck that seemed too large for just 3 months of temporary living. I did not say anything. I helped carry boxes. I made space in the garage. I moved Patricia's sewing room so Diane could have a home office. I told myself this is what family does. 3 months became 6. 6 became 12. By the time a year had passed, Diane had repainted the living room without asking me, replaced the kitchen faucet with something chrome and expensive, and started referring to the house as our place in conversations with her friends. I heard her on the phone once say, "We have a big backyard, so we usually host." I stood in the hallway for a long moment after that. I did not go in. Marcus worked long hours as an electrician. He was gone before sunrise most days. Diane worked from home, doing something with digital marketing that I never fully understood. This meant she was in my house, in my space, every single day. At first she was polite. Then she became comfortable. Then she became the kind of comfortable that forgets to be grateful. She started making comments about the house, small ones at first. The bathroom tiles are so dated, Leonard. This carpet has got to go. It's doing something to my allergies. You know, if we opened up this wall between the kitchen and the dining room, it would feel like a completely different house. I nodded. I said, uh-huh. I did not open the wall. Then the comments became suggestions. The suggestions became plans. One evening, I came home from visiting my old friend Roy and found a contractor sitting at my kitchen table with blueprints spread out in front of him. Diane was leaning over the table, pointing at sections of the layout and nodding. I stood in my own doorway. "What is this?" I asked. Diane looked up and smiled like she had been waiting for me. "Leonard, Come sit down. We've been looking at some renovation options, and I think you are going to love what we found. I looked at my son. Marcus was sitting at the end of the table staring at his phone. He did not look up right away. Marcus, I said. He looked up then. There was something in his face I could not read. Not guilt exactly, more like exhaustion. Just listen to what she has to say, Dad. I did not sit down. I thanked the contractor for his time, and I told him the meeting was over. When he left, Diane's smile stayed on her face, but it got thinner. She told me I was being resistant to progress. She told me the house could be worth twice as much with the right updates. She told me I was living in the past. I told her it was my house. I tried to say it calmly. She said, "For now." I did not sleep well that night. After that, things changed between us in a way that could not be undone. Diane stopped pretending to ask for my input. She ordered new furniture for the living room and had it delivered on a Tuesday while I was at my doctor's appointment. She threw away Patricia's old armchair, the green one with the worn armrests that sat by the window. She threw it away without asking me, without saying a word. When I came home and saw it gone, I asked her where it was. She said it was in bad shape, and she'd had it hauled off. She said she'd gotten me something much nicer. She pointed to a stiff beige sofa that still had the tags on it. I went outside and sat in the backyard next to Patricia's garden for a long time. I want to tell you right now, the question I keep coming back to is why Marcus let it happen. And I am still working through that. My son was not a cruel man. I believe that. But he loved his wife in a way that made him smaller around her. And by then she had spent 2 years teaching him that keeping the peace meant keeping her happy. He was caught in the middle of something he did not know how to get out of, or at least, and that is what I told myself. 6 weeks after the armchair disappeared, Diane sat me down in my own house at my own kitchen table and told me she had been in contact with a real estate agent. She said the house on Greystone Avenue was sitting on land worth far more than the house itself. She said a developer had made an inquiry. She slid a piece of paper across the table to me. There was a number on it. $610,000. I looked at that number for a long time. Then I looked at her. "I'm not selling my house," I said. She folded her hands. She had clearly prepared for this moment. She told me that Marcus and she had spoken with a financial advisor without me, and that keeping an aging property when the market was this strong was, in her words, not smart money management for someone my age. She told me the sale would give me more than enough to move into a very comfortable senior community. She had brochures. She slid those across too. I pushed them back. She told me I was being emotional. I told her she was in my house. Then she said something that I will never forget as long as I live. She leaned forward and said quietly, like she was doing me a favor, "Leonard, we've already spoken to an attorney. Given your age and the fact that you've been showing some forgetfulness lately, there are legal options available to us if you are unwilling to be reasonable." There was a long silence. I looked at my son. He was looking at the table. "Marcus," I said. "Just his name. Nothing else." He said, "Dad, nobody wants it to go that way. Just think about it. That's all we're asking." I stood up from the table. I went to my bedroom. I locked the door. That night I called my old friend Roy. Roy had been my friend since 1987, and he did not mince words. He told me to call a lawyer in the morning and not sign a single piece of paper. He told me to document everything. He told me Diane was running a play he had seen before, and I needed to wake up. I did not sleep at all that night. I lay in the dark in my bedroom, the bedroom where Patricia and I had slept for 28 years, and I listened to my own house breathe around me. The next morning, I did what Roy said. I called an attorney named Catherine Webb, who came highly recommended by a man from my church. Catherine was direct, and she did not waste my time. She told me that what Diane had suggested, using my age and any claimed forgetfulness as legal leverage, was a form of financial elder abuse, and that she had handled cases like this before. She told me to stop signing anything, to document every conversation I could remember, and to get my estate documents reviewed immediately. I told her about the house, about the renovation plans, about Patricia's armchair, about the brochure for the senior community. Catherine was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Mr. Leonard, how is your son in all of this?" I had to think about that for longer than I wanted to. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I genuinely do not know." Things at home became cold after the kitchen table conversation. Diane was polite in a way that was worse than anger, the kind of polite that is really just waiting. Marcus came home late every night. When we did cross paths, he seemed like a man carrying something too heavy to talk about. I tried once to reach him. I stopped him in the hallway one evening and I said, "Son, I need to know where you stand." He looked at me, and I saw something move across his face, something that looked a lot like pain. And then he said, "Dad, I just need you to trust me." That was it. That was all he gave me. I did not know what to do with that. 6 days later, I came home from Catherine's office to find my belongings in the front hallway, not packed badly, actually packed with some care, my good shirts folded, my tools in their case, my books in boxes, which made it worse somehow, the care in it. A cardboard box sat on top with a piece of tape on it that said "Dad" in Marcus's handwriting. Diane was standing in the living room with her arms crossed. But she told me that she and Marcus had discussed it, and they believed it would be best for everyone if I found somewhere else to stay while they made decisions about the property. She told me she had looked into 2 senior communities nearby and would be happy to share the information. I looked around my living room. The green armchair was gone. Patricia's curtains were gone. The walls were a color I had not chosen. And standing in front of me was a woman I had welcomed into my family, telling me to leave my own house. I picked up my things. I carried them to my truck. I drove 2 miles to a gas station on Glenwood Avenue, and I sat in the parking lot because I did not know where else to go. Roy lived 40 minutes away. I did not want to drive 40 minutes in the state I was in. I sat there for a long time. The cardboard box with Dad on it was in the passenger seat. I do not know why I opened it right then. Maybe because I needed something of mine to hold on to. I pulled back the flap. On top of my things, tucked under the fold of my favorite flannel shirt, was a smaller envelope. No label on the outside. I opened it. Inside was a savings account booklet from First Community Bank. I opened it to the balance page. $480,000. I stared at that number until the numbers stopped making sense, and then started making sense again. I turned the booklet over. I turned the envelope over. There was a folded note at the bottom of the envelope, written on a torn piece of notebook paper in Marcus's handwriting. I have read that note so many times since that evening that I could write it from memory right now. It said, "Dad, I need you to trust me just a little longer. I know what it looks like. I know what I let happen, and I will answer for that. But I have been building this for 3 years, and I needed her to think she had won so she would not cover her tracks. Catherine has everything she needs. The account is in your name. It was always yours. I love you. Marcus." I sat in that gas station parking lot, and I cried in a way I had not cried since Patricia's funeral. What I didn't know, what I was about to find out, was that my son had been watching Diane for a long time before I had. He had seen what she was 3 years earlier, not when it was too late, but early enough to start preparing. He had quietly, carefully moved money, his own money from his electrician business, built up over years, into an account in my name, shielding it from anything she could claim. He had stayed close to Diane not because he agreed with her, but because he needed to see every move she made. He had been communicating with Catherine Webb for 4 months before I ever called her office. He had let me feel abandoned because the alternative, tipping Diane off that he was working against her, would have given her time to act first. I am not saying it was right. I am not saying it did not cost both of us something. But when I understood what he had done and why he had done it, I sat with it for a long time before I spoke again. What happened after that moved quickly. Catherine filed a complaint for financial elder abuse and fraud. She had documentation of Diane's communications with the developer, communications that showed Diane had been in contact with that developer for 8 months before she ever sat me down at that kitchen table. She had been planning this before they even moved into my house. The real estate agent she had called was someone she already knew. The attorney she had referenced who could pursue guardianship had already been contacted. She had built a timeline, and she thought she had reached the finish line. She had not. The case moved through the courts over the following 5 months. I will not pretend it was easy. There were depositions and documents and days where I sat in waiting rooms feeling like I was 100 years old. But Catherine was steady and Marcus was present through all of it. And slowly the picture came together in front of a judge who had seen enough to be very difficult to fool. Diane's attorney tried to paint me as declining and confused. Marcus testified against that directly. He sat in that courtroom and told the truth about his father, about the man who had maintained his own home, managed his own finances, kept a garden alive, and never once asked his son to fight his battles for him. He said it clearly, and he did not look away. The judge was not confused. Diane was ordered to vacate the property on Greystone Avenue. She was ordered to repay the cost of the contractor consultation she had conducted without my consent. A formal finding of financial elder abuse was entered into the record. Her attorney appealed once and lost. Marcus moved out the week after the judgment. He did not ask to stay. He found an apartment and he let me have my house back the way it should have been. What happened between him and Diane after that is their business, and I will leave it there. He came back one Saturday morning in April with a truck of his own, not full of his things, full of mine. He had tracked down a green armchair, not Patricia's. That one was gone for good, but one close enough in color and shape that when he carried it through the front door and set it by the window, I had to put my hand on the wall for a moment. He stood there watching me, and he said, "I'm sorry it took so long, Dad." I looked at the chair by the window. I looked at my son. "Sit down," I said. "I'll make coffee." We sat in that living room for 3 hours, and we talked about things we had not talked about in years. About his mother, about the house, about what trust costs, and what it means when someone asks you to hold on to it, even when they cannot explain why. I told him there were moments I was not sure I could. He told me there were moments he was not sure he deserved me too. Before he left that day, I walked him out to the truck. It was one of those April afternoons in Raleigh where the air is warm but not hot yet, and Patricia's garden was starting to come back. Tulips first, the way they always were. He looked at the garden. He said, "Mom, I would have handled all of this better than both of us." I laughed for the first time in what felt like months. "She would have," I said. "She would have seen Diane coming from the first Sunday dinner." He nodded. He got in the truck. He rolled the window down and looked at me before he pulled out. "I'm going to come by more," he said. "If that's okay." "It's more than okay," I said. "This is your home." I watched him drive down Greystone Avenue until the truck turned the corner and was gone. Then I stood there in front of my house, with Patricia's garden coming up through the April ground, and I thought about what had been taken and what had been kept and what could not be taken, no matter how hard someone tried. Some people look at an old man's house and see an asset, a number on a page, an opportunity waiting for the right moment. What they never understand, what Diane never understood, Elspa, is that a house like mine is not a number. It is 31 years of waking up in the same place. It is a garden that keeps coming back even when the person who planted it is gone. It is a green chair by a window and the sound of someone you love moving through the rooms. You can try to take that. You can make plans and call lawyers and slide brochures across kitchen tables, but some things hold on in ways that have nothing to do with a deed. I know that now more than I ever did before. And every morning when I sit in that chair by the window with my coffee and watch the light come into the room the way it always has, I remember that the thing worth fighting for was never the house. It was this.